Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Pitch Side, a podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Enable notifications to receive all the updates from these episodes and all the content on the channel. And of course, follow us on social media as well as listening on every podcast listening platform available. Before we preview the World Cup qualifiers action from Europe and Africa, the second leg in Africa, and the finals of the qualifiers in Europe, let's get talking about a story that is picking up steam over the weekend and seems to be taking a very serious direction, really, which is the future of Robert Lewandowski. I remember talking about that episode in the Friday episode, on the lead up before the preview of the action itself in Europe, or on Thursday actually, when we talked about it before getting into the action in Europe and Africa. But it seems to be the story picking up serious momentum in the weekend, as reports from Sports and Diario in Spain suggest that Lewandowski is close to joining Barcelona, or at the very least is in serious talks with Barcelona to join them in the summer. The situation is that he wasn't given a contract at Bayern. Penny Zahavi, his agent, seems insistent that he wants more money and wants a better contract for his agent, of course. Lewandowski being 33 years of age, it's almost hard to expect him to be given a contract beyond 2 years at Bayern Munich, or beyond 2024 at the very best. So he decided to, seems to be playing his game with Barcelona. I mean, I don't want to believe the Catalan journalists or the Catalan newspapers, because they seem to spare or to spar a lot of BS in terms of transfers, in terms of stories about players moving to Barcelona just to pick up steam and make Barcelona look like this side that is unbeatable in the transfer, that is still a likely direction. I mean, they're picking up players for free. They picked up Kessié, they picked up Aubameyang after terminating his contract with Arsenal. On the way, it seems to be, a bunch of players in the summer as well. Who knows? Lewandowski might be an option. Haaland is an option for Barcelona, if you believe the Catalan newspapers. So I really don't want to believe these stories, but I feel like these should be addressed, because Robert Lewandowski's future has been on the up and down for a while now. There's been a couple of players in Bayern where the contracts negotiations have been at a halt. Him and Gnabry are the biggest two examples of that. But it doesn't seem plausible that he will go from Bayern Munich to Barcelona, even with the money being involved. I mean, we're talking about a big salary here. We're talking about 25 mil a year. That is probably the highest Barcelona would pay for a player, after Messi. Even like Griezmann and Suarez were not being paid that much. The fact is, Robert Lewandowski has done, I think, enough for Bayern. So I just want to address this. If Lewandowski leaves Bayern, I'm not going to be sour about it. I'm not going to be, pity about it. I just, it's a step in his career. If he wants to make the jump, it's fine. He feels like he wants to play in Barcelona. He feels like to be part of that project. Although I still don't believe it. Again, it's still not realistic. Some journalists, some newspapers even went as far as saying that there is an accord in principle between Lewandowski and the club and Juan Laporta. If that is the same kind of game that Penny Zahavi is playing with Bayern Munich and Barcelona, just like he did with David Alaba and Real Madrid, to try and strong arm the board of Bayern Munich into negotiating a new deal, that's probably fair enough. I'm not going to say it's not fair. I mean, in the world of business, almost everything is fair. So I think if you're trying to strong arm the board into a new contract and offering a new contract with much more lucrative income and commissions, of course, for him as an agent, might be a good game on him. But if it is just to, trying to cause chaos in the club and all of that, that's a different story altogether. The Bayern board didn't respond to anything. We didn't hear from Karl-Heinz Rummenigge or Salihamidzic or Oliver Kahn or any of the board about this. They didn't address this at all. And, that kind of assures me that there's nothing really going on, because if they did, or if it did, the board would absolutely respond to it, and they would have to respond to it, because they were pretty open when the Alaba situation was happening last season. They were pretty open that the negotiations were not going well, and he's about to leave the club, and that's it. they've been really talkative about it. But this time it's different. Maybe because it's Lewandowski. Maybe because he has, I'm not going to say more value than Alaba, but he seems to be a much more focal part of the project now than what Alaba was last season. I think for Lewandowski, thinking about making this move will take into consideration lots of factors. I mentioned those before. I talked about them in the Thursday episode last week. But I think it's pretty fair to say that Lewandowski's future with Bayern Munich and the potential move to Barcelona are not two things that go hand in hand. I mean, Lewandowski, for all accounts, probably wants to move to Real Madrid if it is his personal choice. But maybe if he finds, or his agent finds good commission and good fees by moving him to Barcelona, it'd probably be a good business move for him. But anyway, to just wrap up, I still don't believe the reports that say that Lewandowski's moving to Barcelona, and until I see something pretty concrete, and that's saying Fabrizio Romano reporting it, I'm not going to believe it at all. But if it is realistic, I just hope he gets, scores some goals there, and his career, rounds up in Barcelona in the best way possible. I'm not going to be sour about it, and I'm not going to be, feeling pitiful about it. I absolutely adore Lewandowski. He's one of the best players of all time. He's one of the best strikers of all time. Anyone who could say anything about else other than that is simply a stupid person that doesn't really understand how football works. And in my opinion, really, Lewandowski should be regarded as one of the greatest of all time. Even if he makes the move to Barcelona, I will still think he's the best striker in the world at the moment. Carrying on, speaking about Lewandowski, of course, and that transitions us to the preview to start talking about the World Cup qualifiers and the European zone, and two games will take place on Tuesday. It will be Portugal versus North Macedonia and Poland hosting Sweden. Of course, it was supposed to be a third game between whoever wins between Scotland and Ukraine and Wales, but that game is going to be postponed until June. Of course, the draw of the World Cup is going to be taking place on Friday, April the 1st, and that is before all the teams even qualify. There's still games to play in Asia. There's still playoffs to play between the Asian and the South American sides, and there's still, of course, the CONCACAF and South America still have to play some rounds as well. Let's start from Poland-Sweden, since we transitioned into it, talking about Lewandowski. First of all, of course, Lewandowski seems to be ready for this game, according to all reports that I tried to gather. The injury is not very severe. He stopped training again, like he did with Bayern Munich before going on the international break. But he definitely looked fine, at the very least, on the bench in the last friendly they had against Ireland, if I remember correctly, or against Scotland actually. They played, ended 1-1, of course. But definitely, if he starts, it's going to be a big factor. Of course, Zlatan Ibrahimovic on the other side is not available for Sweden. Robin Quaison probably will start at the striker, as he scored against, as he scored for them against Czech Republic to take them through to this final. And I really still believe that Poland will go through if Lewandowski plays. I mean, I don't think that Poland has the greatest of squads. They have a decent side, but not the greatest of squads, particularly at the back. They lack some serious speed, I think, as far as the fullbacks are concerned. The midfield sounds fine. The attack, decent to a certain extent. They have some creativity in the midfield. They have the likes of Zielinski, of course, in the midfield. They definitely have players that could create in the middle and up front, but I think at the back they lack some serious pace. But I stand by my prediction, and I stand by my belief that Poland will get through from that final. Moving on, of course, and it's going to be Portugal versus North Macedonia in Portugal, and people would think, hey, you know what, North Macedonia gave Portugal a big service by eliminating Italy for them and easing their way into the World Cup, and people started dramatizing things about Cristiano Ronaldo and how, the gods of football and the justice of football gave him North Macedonia so he can go through the World Cup. I wouldn't rush into that scenario. I wouldn't really go that poetic and go that dramatic with the scenario, because Portugal could be eliminated as well. North Macedonia eliminated Italy in Italy. They eliminated Italy in their home, in Palermo. They didn't eliminate them in North Macedonia. That just to put this to bed. So they could eliminate Portugal just like they did to Italy in front of their own fans. And it is a plausible scenario. Like, Fernando Santos is not exactly the greatest manager in the world. He's not someone who would say, oh, you know what, it's North Macedonia, let's just put some pressure on them, beat them 5-0 in first half and take the game through. I mean, he has some players injured, of course. They will be returning, surely for this game. Pepe potentially could return from a COVID layoff and could be available. João Cancelo is going to be available at the very least, although Nelson Semedo won't. He's going to have some options in the midfield at the very least. I mean, Ruben Neves probably is going to be a very important option to play. He went with an ultra-attacking formation against Turkey that worked to some extent and created loads of situations for the likes of Otavio and Diogo Jota. But I think, as far as I'm concerned, it didn't really translate defensively, and the midfield in particular was breached because there was only João Moutinho, and he's not defensive by nature, so let's put that straight away. So if he's going to play the same way against North Macedonia, I can understand it, because North Macedonia are a side that you'd expect to cave defensively and to deliver the same kind of game that they did against Italy. And the thing is that defensively, Portugal's midfield is even weaker than Italy's midfield, because you look at the options that they have. You think of Danilo Pereira being a centre-back, playing as a centre-back because of the absence of the likes of Diaz and Pepe, and you think of João Moutinho being in front of the midfield of the defence as well. That is not exactly great base to cover and to defend, and not exactly great positioning if you're talking Danilo Pereira. I saw him play as a centre-half for Paris Saint-Germain against Bayern last season, and it wasn't a pleasant experience if you are a PSG fan. So I think North Macedonia could even have better chances on counter-attack against Portugal than against Italy, because Portugal, they're not exactly a side that wants to hold the ball. They want to go at the attack. So any bad pass, any turnover, and expect those a lot from Cristiano Ronaldo. Unfortunately, North Macedonia on transition, they have some cool players in the midfield to hold the ball. They went in the playoffs without Eljif Elmas, arguably their most technically gifted player. And they have the likes of Enis Bardi, Trajkovski up front. They have some, very experienced players in the back and in the midfield. And they're cool and calm and collected, really. They're not exactly a side that is panicking. They enter both games without pressure. They certainly the side that doesn't have any pressure on them to win, to go to the World Cup. If they did, it will be a big achievement for them. If they didn't, nobody will really blame them and go and laugh at them or say, haha, it's North Macedonia didn't go to the World Cup. It's fine for them. They will absolutely accept it. So Portugal has all the pressure on them to beat North Macedonia, and to beat them emphatically. Like, they don't want to go out of this game looking bad, even in victory, because that's what they did, I think, against Turkey. That's how they looked against Turkey. They looked bad even in victory. They beat Turkey 3-1. But the result was pretty flattering for them, because in the second half and at certain points it looked like Turkey absolutely embarrassed them. And if it wasn't for Burak Yilmaz missing the penalty, potentially we could have been talking about Turkey versus North Macedonia today. So no pressure on North Macedonia whatsoever. Portugal has all the pressure in the world to go to the World Cup. Cristiano Ronaldo personally has all the pressure in the world to go to probably surely was going to be his last World Cup, because you don't expect him to be in the next one at the age of 41 or 42. Fernando Santos has to really make amends, I think, for the bad game he has against Turkey tactically, because if the first game against Turkey, things worked by the pure talent of the players that he brought on, the likes of Matheus Nunes and Rafael Leão, found solutions for him to win. I don't think it's going to be the same situation against North Macedonia. I think he should have a clear plan, because you know what Macedonia is going to be. They're going to be 10 at the back. They're going to be really tight. They're going to be play as tight as they can. And again, I cannot stress this point enough. They have very calm players when it comes to keeping the ball, so that they can keep the ball and they won't be affected by the crowd and by the atmosphere. They will keep the ball around if they can, and they will pass it around, and they will try and find spaces. I think particularly behind Rafael Guerreiro, they will try and find spaces, and if João Cancelo is in, they will try and find spaces behind him as well. So it will be quite the tough game for Portugal in that regard as well. So if they make it, if they are leading by a good score at halftime, I think it will be fine. and I think they will have enough in them to get through North Macedonia and to prove doubters wrong, because it's not about proving doubters wrong with qualifying to the World Cup itself, because that's not going to be a surprise, but I think it's about proving the doubters wrong by going to the World Cup with a great performance and an emphatic statement over North Macedonia to say, oh yeah, Portugal are still here and they will be a very force to be reckoned with in the World Cup itself. I still predict Portugal, but I don't want to write off North Macedonia at all. All respect to them for beating Italy and having one of the greatest defensive performances I ever seen. And in my opinion, Portugal probably will win, but I think I'm really excited to watch how North Macedonia will play in these qualifiers. And again, I'm never writing them off. I'm giving them a solid 30% chance, really, of getting through. So here's my predictions, of course. It's Poland and Portugal, and the third final will be played in June. So until then, loads of things could change. And, you know, why is not Ukraine really suspended for the same reason as Russia? I'm not because of sanctions, not like sanctioning Ukraine, but more of protecting Ukraine, because I don't think that the most important thing for Ukrainians or for any Ukrainian at the moment is to play football. So probably they should have been eliminated from the playoffs just like Russia, but that's another topic for another day. So my predictions are Poland and Portugal, of course, and the third final, in my opinion, probably will be the side. Probably Wales will have more chance than that. I mean, whatever opponent they will end up facing, I think they have more chance because they were playing at home. Let's talk now about the African zone. Of course, the second leg is going to be played on Tuesday. Of course, the 5 games taking place on Tuesday chronologically by this order. It's going to be it's going to be Nigeria hosting Ghana, Senegal hosting Egypt. Then, of course, 3 games on 9:30. It will be Algeria hosting Cameroon, Congo hosting Morocco, or Morocco hosting Congo, and it will be, of course, Tunisia hosting Mali. And that's where I have to start, because I'm going to give it probably the biggest portion of time on this. The first game, as I mentioned, I think on the Saturday special that they did about the qualifiers, I think it was a pretty lucky victory for us. I'm not going to really mince words. It was a lucky victory. It was an own goal, nothing of our own doing. We didn't do much to create chances against Mali in Bamako, but I think we will take it as a victory, particularly as a moral victory, because we didn't beat them for like 50 years in any competition. We played 12 games against them, and we didn't win at all against them. We lost actually more than we draw, even in those kind of games. I felt like it was a big important step for us to win and to get this a psychological win over Mali even in the first leg, because the second leg I still expect us to be better than we were in the first leg and better than any other performance we put on in the last couple of months or so. I think it's more. I mean, we should play more offensively. I think there's no doubt about it. We should really take the pressure into Mali like they took it to us in Bamako. The crowds hopefully will support the 35,000. I mean, just one point to clear. I really don't understand why a stadium that can hold 65 to 70,000 people, and you just, notch it down to a half of a capacity. I mean, Congo hosted Morocco in a full stadium, Mali hosted us in a full stadium, Egypt hosted Senegal in a full stadium, Ghana hosted Nigeria in a full stadium, Cameroon hosted Algeria in a full stadium. Why Tunisia can't be afforded the same luxury? But anyway, people will take it. The tickets apparently are all up, and the game is sold out, so that's probably a good sign. So we should take it, I think. There's no two ways about it. The plan, I think, is pretty straightforward. We have to be attacking. We have to win. We have to go to the World Cup with the best performance possible. I remember in the last qualifiers, we ended on a sour note. I would say the campaign against Libya at home, drawing 0-0 in a game where we were almost like on the edge of being eliminated if things had gone wrong, if Congo, defeated, their opponents in the other game, would have probably been eliminated on goal difference, something like that. So I think we should be attacking. We should be really, really going forward and looking forward. Kasri is going to be returning, so that's probably a plus. But that maybe will alter the situation a little bit, but particularly in the midfield, that will change the form of the midfield a little bit. But obviously, in my opinion, I still believe we will win. We're close to the World Cup, but I think we still have half of the job to do, of course, in Tunisia and at home. Moving back, of course, now to Morocco versus Congo, the game that ended 1-1 in the first leg in Congo. I mean, that's a good result for Morocco, just all the bad, because the away goals are still going to be considered in this tie. That's the last ever World Cup qualifiers for Africa to be judged or to be ruled under the away goals rule that will be taken off starting from the next qualifiers. It is definitely a tricky game for Morocco, even at home, even against Congo, even with the result of 1-1 and the away goal that they scored. I think it's still a pretty tricky game, and they still have to be careful and wary from Congo, because they could put on quite the performance when it comes to beating them in Morocco. I mean, they could have a day off. They didn't look particularly sharp for most of the game in Congo. I mean, until they got the substitutions on, and Ayoub El-Kabi was in, and Tassoudali was in, the goal scorer. They didn't look practically sharp in that game. Congo, I mean, were wasteful, I would say, for a couple of good chances. Yassine Bono was good, saving a couple of great opportunities that deny Congo a win that could, again, change the whole complexion of the game, because a win, even 2-1, the win would still be pretty tough to deal with, unlike a draw, for example, where it's easy to just, keep the ball, stay calm, and try to sting Congo in the right moment to deny them any opportunity and any hopes to get into this tie. But I think this game could be really, really hard and really, really tough, and it will be really tough for Morocco, just because I think that they will need a serious momentum booster as far as this game is concerned. It will be in their home. Potentially, it will be without crowds because of the sanctions from FIFA. I still believe they will go through, but it will be pretty hard, and they need to be careful. In Algeria. And in Algiers, it will be Algeria versus Cameroon, of course. Big victory as well for the 2019 African champions, one of the best sides in Africa. 1-0 victory in Cameroon away from home in a pretty different display from what we saw, but obviously they were pretty motivated after the disaster of the African Cup of Nations. They wanted to make things up for what happened there, and, it's all their right in the world to do so, because realistically speaking, that's what should happen. They should be making amends for what happened in the African Cup of Nations, and they did that, I think, in the best way possible, beating Cameroon 1-0 on the Olimbi Stadium. The first game for Rigobert Song with the side ended up in a defeat, not the best of starts for him. But obviously, they need to still be careful as well. I mean, they have the advantage at home. I still think they're a better side than Cameroon at the moment, and they will play better than them. But I think, as far as I'm concerned, they will have a hard game. But obviously, they have the advantage, which makes them favourites, I think, to win this game against Cameroon and to go to the World Cup, and to really, also sort of make people forget that they didn't qualify for the last one in a pretty weird way in 2018. Hopefully they will qualify for this one, because people expected them to qualify for this one, and they're one of the sides that Jamal Belmadi himself is very high on and has very high hopes, as he said, for the World Cup. For them, but I think the advantage in 1-0 in Cameroon, I think, was pretty important, particularly just like Tunisia not conceding goals away from home is going to be a big part of their advantage heading into the second leg at home. Moving on as well, then now we move to the fourth game. That includes Arab teams, but it is the hardest of them all, I would say. Egypt going away to Dakar, to the new stadium, to face Senegal. The first leg ended with Egypt victory 1-0. That didn't feel like a victory, because Senegal did all sorts of chances, particularly in the second half. They created loads of opportunities, overlaps, crosses, shots, whatever you want to think about. But the Egyptian defense, I think the centre-halves and the midfielders were absolutely immense. The second leg is going to be hard as it is, like with the 1-0 result. Without any other consideration, it's going to be hard as it is because it's Senegal. But it's going to be even harder because you would expect Senegal to be more of the same in this game, and you expect Egypt to be pressured for most of it. So potentially, the pressure is going to be on Egypt to deliver here a very solid defensive performance and try to sting Senegal maybe in their own stadium. It will be hard to do, but they will try and catch a goal, sneak in a goal, a lucky goal even, like the one they got in Egypt, in fact. They seem to have a plan, and their plan is probably to try and defend as compact as they can, not allow loads of spaces, although I think the quality in Senegal's midfield and attack will force that space out of the Egyptian players, but they will have to be focused 100% to 100% even focused if they want to get through this game unscathed and with the best of the results, which of course will qualify them to the World Cup for the second time in a row. For Senegal, it's going to be a shame if they miss out on the World Cup, being one of the best sides in Africa and being the African champions, of course, at the moment. It's going to be a shame if they miss out on it. I still think they're favourites, and I still think they could turn things around with the support of the crowds, and it's going to be a pretty big atmosphere in the new stadium. But in my opinion, it's really, really hard to see any other, result other than a Senegal win. Maybe a Senegal win that won't qualify them even, who knows? It probably can be a 1-0 and they go to extra time and penalties. Maybe it will be a 2-1 that will give also the victory to Egypt on away goals. So I think it will be a really interesting tie to look forward to from both perspectives. How Senegal will try and do. They don't seem to be very effective when they are pressed and panicked, I think, Senegal. But I think, Egypt will try and be as calm as they can and not exactly show stress or nervousness, because if they do, I think Senegal will prey on them and will score 2 or 3 goals at the very least. And then, of course, finishing off, Ghana versus Nigeria, or Nigeria hosting Ghana. The first leg ended in Accra with 0-0, result in Kumasi with 0-0 result. I still think Nigeria would go through. I don't really have loads of reasoning why Ghana would do that, but I think Nigeria could still go through. I mean, obviously both disappointed with the outcomes in the AFCON. They're playing each other, trying to make their fans forget what happened in the last African Cup of Nations, and they'll probably do that, one of them. I think Nigeria are favourites, better side than Ghana at the moment. I think they have a better squad, certainly, but I'm never writing off Ghana. I mean, if these two teams were at their proper strength and they were at their proper very best, I would think this game would be absolute corker to watch for any neutral fan. But I think at the moment it doesn't seem that Ghana are at their very best, and Nigeria seem to be also in a bit of a transition phase after the African Cup of Nations, trying to change some personnel and move into some new players. But I think Nigeria will go through. So these are my 5: Nigeria, Morocco, Algeria, Senegal, and Tunisia. That's it for this episode. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version, subscribe to the YouTube channel, enable notifications to receive all the updates, and of course follow us on social media, and as well listen on any podcast listening platform. Until next time, I'm your boy, the HOD of the PSP, and goodbye.
Doors, I'm a fool for your love.